I'm super excited to be here because I've got a whole lot of stuff to throw at you to really become a much better networker, much better at really making connections that will absolutely, I promise you, really become life-changing and career-changing. I'm going to show you a few really great tips and strategies shortly. But before I do that, on the bottom right there, on your bottom right, you'll see there's the little clapper thing, the thumbs up, the emojis over there. What I want you to do right now, if you could, I know there's about 100 and change of you here. If you could each hit one of those buttons, if you've ever had in your educational career a boring professor, if you've ever had a boring professor, please let me know about that. Oh, I guess just one or two of you. Um, I'm going to do my best not to be that person. I do not want to be boring. I do not want to be go on and on and on. I graduated over a long time ago, 30 years ago from Colgate University in upstate New York. And what I want to tell you right now is that all of you have an incredible, incredible opportunity to sort of grow and have an incredible network of fellow alums. Whatever school you're going to, I promise you that those alumni will want to connect with you and chat with you for eternity. It's typically a 2, 3, 4 year experience or more at these schools that we share a common bond with each other. So, for example, I can today reach out to any Colgate graduate, any Colgate alum, any Colgate student, and I would say 95% of the chance of the time I will be able to make that connection because of that strong alumni bond. It's that connection. So I hugely encourage you to start cultivating and growing a list of connections that includes your fellow students and fellow alumni. I'm going to show you how to do that in a few minutes. We're going to do something here where we're going to do a little bit more interactively, where I'm going to speak for a few minutes and we're going to bounce back to the tables. And what I want you to do is at your table, just spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes with that specific assignment I'm going to talk to you about, and then we'll bounce back in here and talk about it. And if any of you are willing to come into and share your experience and so forth in here with me, I'll send you a free copy of my book, which I just happen to have one here, shameless plug. It's called Win Again, and it's really a job search handbook for anybody who's been an athlete, is an athlete, who is looking to leverage that athletic excellence into business success. I know I'm biased, but it's an amazing book. You can get it on Amazon, or that's the best way to probably do it. But I'm happy to give you a free one if you'll agree to come in here. So with that said, let's just jump right in. I think the first thing I want to talk about right off the bat is this. Everybody out there, when you're speaking to somebody, wherever they are, whoever they are, always put yourself in their mind, in their mindset. Don't think about what it is you want to say. Focus on what it is that they want to hear. They're much more likely you want or to skew things in your direction if you anticipate what it is that they want to hear and what they want to see and that sort of thing. So right now I know that as students, you're subjected to a whole lot of people, whether it's commencement speeches or whatever it is. A lot of people are saying things like, you got to go out there and crush the world. You got to seize the day. You got to take the bull by the horns, all that kind of stuff. Blah, blah, blah. I don't even know what that means. I mean, I have an idea what that means. But if they're not telling you how to do that, it's almost useless. What I'm going to do today is really give you a lot of tips and strategies you can use basically immediately to really start growing and network, but also knowing what to say to people when you meet them, knowing how to use their backgrounds and their expertise to your advantage. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but in a good way. So starting right off, I think a lot of you might say, and do me a favor, throw, whenever you hear something you're interested in or like or whatever it is, do that thumbs up thing again, or the claps or whatever it is. But if you have, I guess, thought to yourself, gee, I'm a student athlete and I spend a lot of time playing my sport, whatever it is. It could be basketball, it could be volleyball, it could be swimming, whatever the sport is. And you don't really know what else you bring to the table. You don't really know what your identity is outside of being an athlete. Obviously, you're not alone, but just throw in a quick little thumbs up or something if you ever feel that. If you're wondering, geez, what else am I? Who am I? Well, I want to show you a couple things today that you can do that's really awesome. It'll really start pulling out from you what I like to say sort of a secondary interest, but most people, most athletes, and I work with a lot of student athletes, but I also work with Olympians and amateurs, and I work with professional athletes. I've worked with Hall of Famers like Marshall Falk, for example, who, when he retired, this is a Hall of Famer, football Hall of Famer, had millions and millions of dollars, houses, cars, all this stuff, right? But he was depressed. And the reason he was depressed was that suddenly he was retired. He was sitting on the couch. He didn't have a daily routine anymore. He didn't have the fans. He didn't have the attention. He didn't have that adrenaline rush of the competition. He didn't have the locker room and the family. You know, you have a family, your team, right? Didn't have all these things. He didn't have the nutrition anymore. He didn't have a lot of stuff. Suddenly, he had stuff and money, but he didn't have all those other things. And that's what happens when you walk away from the sport, unless you prepare yourself for that moment. I hate to say this, but many of you probably realize you will not necessarily become a professional badminton player, professional judo, professional whatever it is you're doing, whatever sport you're playing now. Some of you will, but most of you won't. And none of us, including myself, I never wanted to hear that. And you know, I played a few sports in college, and I was thinking, oh no, that's not me, right? Well, sadly, even the Hall of Famers retire well before they're 40, 20s and 30s. So what happens is that when you're an athlete, you don't necessarily want to have a plan B. You want plan A. Plan A is I'm an athlete. There's no plan B. But what you can do is start developing secondary interests. Start thinking about what is it you do that's not on the court, on the rink, on the field, on the whatever, that you actually like doing, that you have fun doing. It could be photography, it could be fashion, it could be film, it could be real estate, it could be finance, it could be law, it could be all these different things that you just have an interest in. One thing I encourage every athlete I work with is to start working and maybe dedicating a few minutes a day or maybe a half an hour a week to that secondary interest, and just make it so that it's something that it's almost like exercising a different part of your brain. Studies have shown that when you do something else like that, you actually perform better on the field because you're not dedicating 100% of everything to that sport. You're still extremely dedicated to the sport, but you're also dedicated to something else that's actually complementing what you're doing as an athlete. So with that said, I'm going to give you a quick little exercise I want you all to do right now. And if you can take notes about this, it's pretty important. But this exercise I'm going to give you, it's called a personality traits assessment. But basically, what I want you to do is make a list on a piece of paper, on a Word doc, whatever it is, and look back throughout the course of your life and think to yourself, all right, well, what are 10 or 11 or 15 or so things that I've done in the course of my life, things that I am particularly proud of, that I accomplished, that I really enjoy doing. Now, that came to a positive response, a positive ending, result. So for example, it might be that when you were 12, you were on the beach and you made a really cool sandcastle. And you looked at it and you were like, oh my God, that's the best sandcastle ever made in history. And if other people are saying, wow, that's great, or other people said, wow, that's just a pile of sand, it doesn't matter. If you yourself thought it was amazing, great, write it down. Or if you wrote or did a specific project in school now that you yourself are super proud of, it took tons of research, conversations with people, and it showed some new stuff that really was really incredible, write that down. It could be if you were in the Boy Scouts or something and led a bunch of boys up a hill, with developing a great trail that took people right to the top. Great. Write these down. And the reason to do that is that when you see a list of 10, 15, 20 things that you've accomplished throughout the course of your life, it could be something you did when you were 7, 17, doesn't matter how old you were. The point being that when you make a list of accomplishments, and then what you do is take a look at those and maybe pull out the top 5 or 6 and rank them. It doesn't need to be 1 through, but just take out 6 of them or so. And then think to yourself, okay, I'm going to write maybe 3 or 4 sentences about each one that tell me, what is it that what fundamental elements of each of those made it a great accomplishment. So for example, if you were, again, like, did that big sandcastle or something, well, maybe it shows that you're really interested in design and maybe architecture and being creative and working with your hands and doing something that really is really interested in design. write that stuff down. Or if you led a bunch of boys or girls up a hill or on a trail or whatever it was, you're showing leadership, you're showing management, you're showing planning. These are all skills that are so important going forward. But write those down as parts of each accomplishment that you did. Because what you're going to find, I promise you, you're going to find this, is after each one of those things, and when you put it all together, there's going to be some common threads that stand out that show you that, gee, you know what? Out of all these accomplishments, most of them involve some sort of leadership, or most of them involve analysis, or most of them involve management, or maybe they involve being creative, or being inventive, or working well on a team, or working independently. But the point is that when you look at all of that and you do that assessment, that exercise, you're going to find that actually what's going to come out of there is, you know what? My next job, when I leave school, when I graduate and I'm ready to go on to my next bigger and better thing, you know what? I want to make sure that it includes something that's in management or in leadership or in design or creativity or musicianship or whatever it is. Whatever your common threads were in the things that you're most proud of doing throughout the course of your life, just by complete, I mean, it's obvious that if you're, it's logical, right? That if you're doing all these things that you've done before that you love doing and you were successful doing, if you incorporate those into your next thing, you're going to crush it. You're going to kick butt. And that's the important thing to do here. So look, what I want to do right now is take about maybe a minute or two, go back to the tables where we are. And some of you may not have seen the tables yet, and just talk to your other table mates just real quickly about, an accomplishment that you may have had, and maybe pull from that accomplishment something specific about it that that really makes you say, you know what, I want to make sure I incorporate that into my next what I do after I graduate. So we're going to jump back to the tables, just chat for maybe a minute or so. Then we're going to come back in here, and then I'm going to ask for a volunteer or two. I want you to put, just jump into the chat and just say, Mark, I'm happy to come in. And as I said, if I bring you in, I'm going to also make sure to mail you a copy of my book. So let's go back to the tables for a couple of minutes, do that, and then we'll bounce right back here. Here we go. All right. Hope that was, I know that was pretty quick, but look, I guess what I want to do is make sure that, you all start getting used to the idea of looking back at your accomplishments and what you've done, and really start thinking about how you can incorporate those into your next thing, what you do going forward. So I guess what I want to do is really start take a look at those accomplishments and what you're pulling from those common threads, and really start thinking to yourself, all right, well, now that I've got that stuff, well, how do I figure out, well, what's next? Like, well, the thing is that a lot of times athletes especially aren't really sure how to leverage and to understand what it is that they have done while as an athlete that actually translates into the business world, right? And so I put together a little document that we're going to share in the general chat right now. It's on the field and off it's a table that really shows you the different things that apply to you. I promise you that you can leverage in terms of bringing in sort of that athletic mindset and skill set to the business world. Before we jump into that, both Julie and Valerie have offered up, so I'm going to bring each of you in. So tell me a little bit about one of your accomplishments and how you what are some of the themes that come out of it?
Okay, so this is a story that starts from when I was in high school. So me and my other two friends, we were in a club that didn't really focus on promoting diversity and inclusion of all the athletes. So we actually discussed it and we talked about it with one of the athletes' parents of creating our own volleyball club. And we were benefited with like the idea of creating a volleyball club, and we had her mom manage all of the financial things while we started doing like naming of the club, recruiting people to start and playing with our club. And so we created a club called the Long Island Knights Volleyball Club, which is a nonprofit volleyball organization that focuses on diversity, also leading with a family-oriented organization, affordability and also an exposure to allow people of the community to come together and learn the sport volleyball and also play volleyball.
Okay.
Um, so it's a big volleyball club that's originated in Almont, which is in Long Island.
Hmm.
And so I guess that's one of my biggest accomplishments because from ninth grade, you wouldn't really think of creating your own volleyball club. And it's become really big. And we focus on camps and clinics for younger kids. We don't really charge too much. We also allow for competitive play for kids in high school that are willing to play volleyball and further their exposure of volleyball and also get them playing in college. There's a few of us that played in college. So I played for the club and I also started coaching this year while playing volleyball for Queensborough. So
That's
it's
awesome.
been really good, and I guess it goes in the lines of public health, which is something that I want to do in the future. So it's definitely given me a sense of leadership and management, and also community organization, which so that's really one of my biggest accomplishments, and
That's
I take a lot of
amazing.
pride.
That's amazing. And what that tells me, Valerie, is that what you can do is take all that stuff, Valerie, and really turn it into what's going to be your next career. I mean, that these are all things that's the whole point. Is that I mean, clear you're so proud of what you did, and it sounds amazing, and it's not easy to do that. It's not easy for the average person to create a club like that, but also to manage it, to run it, to start it, to do all that stuff that you had to do. So to me, that tells me that you're absolutely hireable in a company that wants to look at people with strong management skills and leadership skills, and you already have those. So whenever the time comes that it's time for you to start looking at jobs, but also interviewing and so forth, make sure you mention that to the club, because these are all skills that lots of companies would love to have, because it's not easy to find someone with that kind of skill set. So that's perfect. Very impressive.
Thank you.
All right, and I'll have Dahlia message you to get your address so we can send you a book if you'd like.
Okay, sounds good. I appreciate
Great.
it.
Of course. Thanks, Valerie. Appreciate it. Thanks. Um, all right, and now so with Julia, she wrote down, and I'm going to read it out loud in case you can't see this. But during the pandemic, she started a page called Access Softball, where basically she worked on her journalism skills and interviewed a bunch of professional softball players and Olympic level players like Ali Carta and Monica Abbott. And she did this during the pandemic to inspire and motivate youth. And she wanted them to hear from people who've gone where the youth wants to go, especially during the pandemic. It was a great way to keep positivity and motivation during a hard time, especially when sports were shut down for a while. So she started this page at 50 followers and grew it to almost 1,000. That's incredible. And yes, Julia, it was absolutely a great way to build a platform, and it built a community that people can rely on one another. That's amazing, Julia. And actually, why don't we connect offline at some point? I'm happy to introduce you to some of the I know several of the professional softball players that if you want to, maybe I can introduce you to some of them, the gold medalists from a few years ago. So happy to talk about that. But thank you so much for that, sharing your story, Julia. And then Kenneth, yes, of course you can share your story. Let me bring you in.
Oh, okay. You can hear me good?
All right, there you are. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fabulous. Thanks for coming in.
No problem. So this happened, I think, in sophomore and year. As a student athlete for my high school, we didn't really have enough time to tutor for SATs. So my goal was to speak to an old alumni and one of my favorite teachers, and to make a little program to help us student athletes get enough time from practicing after hours, from like 4 to 7, at least from 8 to 10, have enough time to study, if you need any help with schoolwork. So like a little tutoring workshop, basically.
Okay.
It was really valuable because I think we had a few members come from each different team. It was like a small group of teams. So we had like track and field, some from the basketball team. It wasn't as much, but it got the memo that everyone who needed help could come and get help.
That's amazing. And how do you think that's, I mean, one thing that's important to do when you look at those things, Kenneth, is to think, well, what has been the impact on them, right? It's sometimes we focus so much on what we're doing to that, but then what I want you to do is maybe take a minute and think, well, I mean, maybe tell me, do you think that some of those students, how they benefited from it, and are they still benefiting from it? What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I think that what we did was give them an outlook to see what they actually want to do for a career path. Because
Hmm.
before, usually high school students just think about the sport aspect instead of being a student first. So during that, it gave them a chance to say, maybe I want to do something in technology, or maybe have a little touch in design or something that gives them a career path. Because I remember one of the students, he actually, well, last time I spoke to him, he was interning with Verizon, which I was surprised at. So I know that he, instead of just thinking about basketball the whole time, he went to pursue a goal in something else.
That's amazing. And see, that's the kind of thing that what I really want to share with everybody here is that, a lot of times you may think that, oh, well, gee, I'm only X years old. I'm only 21 or 18 or 23 or 7, whatever your age is. How can I have an impact? I promise you, every one of you can make such an incredible impact. And it's funny. A few years ago, I was speaking to somebody over at the U.S. Olympic Committee and Paralympic Committee, and they were frustrated because they have so many Olympians that they wanted to help that are retired. The person who was 28th in judo, but they were an Olympian. Someone who was in these different sports, biathlon, ski jumping, whatever, and they were frustrated because it was so hard to help each one of them. And I always say, look, just start with one. Just start with one. Help one person, because that one person will share what you taught them with their two friends. And then those two friends will teach those and so forth. And it multiplies that way. So, Kenneth, I think it's fantastic what you did there. Now, what do you think? Um, what do you think out of that? What does that tell you about one of the things that maybe you can do going forward?
I think it tells me that I just enjoy trying to help people, because usually, for now, at least in college, I always try to make sure all my classmates or friends understand the assignments they're going for. Even if I don't understand, I just think helping people is like something that, for me personally, it makes me happy or gives me joy. Because instead of just like forgetting someone or let them suffer or struggle, I rather help them, find themselves and get better at what they're interested in, and how just I just want to be supportive no matter what.
That's amazing. And you know what? Obviously, we need more like you on the planet here, right? But what I'll tell you about that, though, Kenneth, is where that can lead is there's so many avenues for you to consider going forward in your career. I mean, you can get into medicine. Obviously, that's a big thing involving with help. I can't because I don't like the sight of blood, so I'm out. But if you don't mind this, I don't know. But there's medicine, but there's also therapy. There's also counseling. There's also coaching. There's so many different things that when you feel that sort of that joy for helping other people, it's interesting because you mentioned it yourself a second ago that to me when I work with people, I I mean, I love doing what I do. I love the coaching thing. I love teaching, right? And it's a passion that it's also good for my, I hate to see it, but my ego, right? I get thrilled when I know that someone else is benefiting from what I'm teaching them, right? So it's the same thing, Kenneth. I think that's fantastic, and I'm really impressed with what you're saying and what you're doing, and keep at it. That's fantastic. All right. Well, look, thanks so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for
All
having me.
right. Yeah, yeah, of course. Anytime. I want to talk about how to really take some of that knowledge of some of the things that you believe you could be doing next. And I want to show you how easy it is. Easy it is. It's incredibly easy to to be on LinkedIn and to use LinkedIn. There are people that talk about, well, gee, yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. But if you're on it, that's one thing. But if you use it, I can't begin to tell you how many incredible people I've connected with on LinkedIn just by sending them a simple message. And what I want you all to know is that I think Kim sent our LinkedIn guide, but I'm gonna throw that in, not now, but in a few minutes. I'm gonna throw that into the general chat, and it's a guide that sort of walks you through some of the tips and tricks and stuff that you can use when you're on LinkedIn. But it's got some networking tips on there too. It's a really great bunch of info. But real quickly, actually, Julia was asking what's our contact info. Please, by all means, find me on. I'm going to share my screen right now, And what I'd love for all of you to do, all of you, I promise all of you, is I'd like you all to connect with me on LinkedIn. I want you all to reach out to me and to just hit that connect button. But don't just hit that connect button. Please don't. I'm going to tell you what I want you to do and how to do it in a minute. But this is my LinkedIn profile. I'm going to jump into that real quick because developing a network is absolutely critical as you continue through your college career and as you graduate. When you develop a network, and it can be people that are your age, but it's even better if it's people even my age, because what I'll tell you is that, you know, sometimes people say, oh, you know, she's a managing director of something, or he's the VP of something, or whoever is whatever. Why do they want to talk with me? Well, first of all, we love to share our wisdom and our advice and our insight. It strokes our ego a little bit. So whenever you, all of you, reach out to somebody who's a little bit older, but also, you know, employed and has something that they can really share with you, they're going to be excited to connect with you, and they're going to be flattered that you picked them to connect with. What I'll also tell you is that CEOs, CFO, like C-level people on LinkedIn are absolutely fine with connecting with you. In fact, sometimes I've found that the more senior you go, the better chance you have of connecting with somebody, truly, because they're going to be, other people are saying, oh no, she's too senior, she'll never connect with me. Well, if you're the person that reaches out to her, she'll connect with you, right? So anyways, with that said, I'm going to jump into a quick little LinkedIn stuff right now. It's so important to be on there, but also to be using it. So just real quickly, if you look at my profile right there, and by the way, before you start reaching out to connect with me, I'm going to ask you to make sure you personalize an invitation. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But when you look at my profile here, you'll see, most importantly, it's got my name, my picture, and then this banner in the background. Now, I would ask all of you to, number one, make sure that your picture, I know this is basic stuff, but I'm just going to say it, your picture, please don't have like the dangling someone else's hand or arm in it, or your half of your head cut off, or a beer bottle in it, or whatever it is. Just take the 20 seconds to do a selfie in front of anything, but, you know, in front of a bookcase, in front of a wall, in front of anything. Look semi-professional, like maybe a button-down shirt or something for the guys, and just something somewhat business casual, classy, that kind of thing. Just take a quick snap of that. That's fine. And then also do a banner shot. And a banner shot could be of New York City. It can be of your campus. It can be of mountains. In my case, obviously, I'm promoting my business, but in this case, I mean, you can have almost anything there, but do something there instead of just a bland, nothing there kind of thing. In terms of a title, real fast, you can see here, instead of you saying student at wherever, which is the default choice that LinkedIn will throw in there, I want you to put in maybe a couple of things that you'd love to do. Maybe put in something like, I'm making this up, but real estate enthusiast, or if you're studying chemistry and something, you can say, you know, chemistry, chemistry or something. I mean, put in some things in there. Also put in student athlete. It's very important for people to know that you are an athlete on top of being a student. To me, athletes are desired in most businesses because of all the things that you bring to the table. You bring tenacity, you bring grit, you bring an incredible work ethic. The ability to pivot on a moment's notice is absolutely critical in the world of business. You're comfortable on the big stage. You're in front of fans, in front of people. You're comfortable with that. The average person is not comfortable with that. So there's so many different things that you have, that you bring to the table, that I promise you, businesses would love to have you part of. So keep that in mind. So anyway, in here, you can see that I've listed pretty much a lot of my stuff. There's plenty of room to list it: transition coach, business connector, athletes, entrepreneurs, and veterans. I founded this company, Win Again. I also host events in the club room, just like this one here. I wrote the book, Win Again. I'm a speaker, I'm a podcast host. So these are some of the things that I list that I think are really important. Now, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see I've got my about section, and in this about section, I've got a whole bunch of stuff here. You know, I've got, not only do I have combining my passion. I talk a little bit about what I do, but then on top of that, I talk about what I do, what you can do. I put a call to action with me. So what I would encourage you all to do is to have something in there that says, hey, I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to hear more about what you do. I'd love to hear, I'd love to just have a discussion. Please feel free to reach out to me. And then if you've got a website by any chance, or you've got other social media you want to share with, feel free to put it in there. That's perfectly fine. In my case, I've been featured in a few magazines like Forbes and so forth. I've got a lot of activity that I put in here. Let's see if this, okay. So you can see I've done a bunch of posts in here. I've got, I've got an upcoming event tomorrow where people can learn how to be much better public speakers and stuff. And I've got Chris Dennard in here, and she's a former MTV VJ, and she's going to be speaking about how to be a better speaker and presentation. So I talk about that. This was one of the networking events I had. This was one of the events I had with a founder of a company called Plate Crate. So this is where I put a lot of my stuff. And what I will do is, and I'm busting my way through this real quickly, but it's so important that when you're on LinkedIn, that you're also engaging on LinkedIn. What I mean by that is feel free to write content. Feel free to add, make sure you add content that you, what do you call it? That you do the occasional posts, that kind of thing. Let me make sure that I'm sharing the right screen here. Hang on one second. Go back to here and go back to here and then do this one here. So for example, I was starting to show, and I just want to make sure I do this again, that when you do posts, which is what I did here, you can see I've got all kinds of different events that I did. There's the business networking in the club room. I've got a bunch of different things. So that's why I like to show that stuff there. So back to my profile just real fast, because I want to show you the important things that you need to have in here. These are again the articles that I've written, my activity, my experience, and so forth. Now, in education, I wrote in here that I was in a fraternity at the time. I played rugby, I played some tennis, I was a DJ for a while. It's important that you list all that stuff, because then you want to make sure that other people see some common threads of things that you connect with them with. Another thing that's really important is joining, let's see, groups. So for example, I'm a member of a lot of groups, a lot of them. You can see athletic networking, baseball groups, football groups, sports business groups, Olympian groups, all kinds of them. There's tons of them, okay? And I'm a member of alumni groups too. What I encourage you all to do, please, 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 is join as many groups as possible. Especially as they tie in with your school, with CUNY, with sports. If you're a basketball player, join the groups that say basketball players. Now, the way to do that is up here. I'm just going to put in College, College. And then you'll see, here's the school, right? But I also want to find the groups. So I'll click on groups that tie in with that. And you can see there's different groups. There's a Baruch College Alumni Network official group here. Baruch College, blah, 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 different Baruch ones here. Baruch College Alumni Association. The way you join is I just click in here, and then you'll see it opens it up, and then I didn't graduate Baruch, so I won't join it. But if I click on join here, then you'll be able to join that group. Then you'll start hearing some content from them, but then you can start actually adding content if you're a member of the group. So I'll go back to a group that I am a member of, and I'll show you how that works real fast. All right, so if I go back to my page, and then I'll scroll down to my groups real quick, and then I'll show you how this works real fast. So, where'd it go here? Where are my groups? Organizations, interests, groups. And then show all 90. And then, so let's say best baseball, let's play blah. I'm in this group. So now what I can do, if I want, is I can start adding content. So I might say, baseball is awesome because whatever. And then if I click on the word post here, I'm not going to do that now, but if I click on post, it will show up at the very top, and it'll be exposed to all the 5,000 members, and they will have a chance to read it. So you can see, you can start developing a reputation on LinkedIn where people will start seeing your expertise, especially if you start sharing content that shows off what you know and who you know, and sort of some of your expertise. So if, for example, we heard about starting a volleyball group, right? We spoke earlier about that. Well, then maybe write about that, and then say, here are all the reasons why it was awesome to start a volleyball group out on Long Island, because A, B, C, D, and E. And you post that in a volleyball group. So maybe we can check that out. And it's so easy to find these things. I'm telling you, it's such an amazing resource tool. So volleyball, I'm just going to do that. Oh, shoot, that's in the baseball group. Hang on one second. Sorry, bear with me, bear with me, bear with me. If I go to home, and then there we go. This should do the trick. Man, I'm trying to talk so fast. I got to probably slow down. If I type in the word volleyball here, you can see now it's going to open up all kinds of volleyball in groups. And you can see there's all these different volleyball groups: Volleyball Business Network, Volleyball Vacations, Volleyball, blah, 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 blah. And then you can post content in there, and there'll be tons of people seeing that. So make sure that when you're on LinkedIn, that you're not only working on your profile and making sure that it looks pretty snazzy, because what's going to happen is, as you start inviting people to connect, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, you're going to find that you want them to see not only who you are, what your title is, what your stuff is, but also a few words about your about section, about what you bring to the table. And maybe if you started having some activity, you talk about some of your experiences, maybe if you had an internship, that sort of thing. That's the best way to do it. What I do encourage you all to do, if you have the opportunity, is to feel free to reach out to me and connect. But I want you now to do it in a way where, I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. Let's say I wanted to, okay, this guy here, Randall. I've already sent him a connection request. Sorry. Let me search for, I don't know. Let's see, Derek Jeter, baseball player. Okay. Now, there's probably a decent chance that this is not the real Derek Jeter, but I'm going to go to his profile here, and let's say I do want to connect with him. Well, I want to make sure that I personalize a message to him. So I'm going to say, I'm going to hit connect, and then other, connect, and then I want to personalize it. So I'm going to add a note saying, hi, Derek, would love to run some business ideas by you. Let's set up a chat in the coming days. That's all you got to do. Cheers, Mark. P.S. You're a pretty good player. But anyway, if you personalize this, so in your case now, today, if you want to personalize a note to me saying, hi, Mark, I watched your presentation. I really learned a lot of stuff. Would love to connect with you and hear more about what I can do to become sort of better at networking and better out there. Regards, or cheers, or however you want to answer it. That's the way to do it, not just sending me a regular request. I kind of hope Derek Jeter connects with me, but I don't think he will, because I don't think that's him. But with LinkedIn, the most important thing is to understand that you are able to start choosing who it is you connect with, and when, and where, and in what capacity. So whenever I need anything, if I'm, for example, trying to learn how to be, if I need to maybe make some new connections to connect with one of the health and wellness companies that I'm helping right now, I'll reach out to and I'll do a health and wellness search, but then I'll start finding some people that I can pick. And maybe I decide to narrow it down to Colgate alums, and I'll show you how that works. It's really pretty cool. So that way you can choose, you can do the school that you're attending right now. So for example, I'll share my screen one more time again, real fast. And here we go. So I've got Colgate in here, and then I'm going to view the page, And then what I can do is I can look at alumni right here. So I'll click on alumni. And then now what I can do is, now there's 31,000 alumni that are on LinkedIn. A lot of them live in the U.S., mostly a lot of them in New York City area. But let's say I want to, I'm going to make this up, but let's say I really want to find scuba divers who went to Colgate. I'll just type in the word scuba, and now I just made that up by way of now. There's 90. So 90 alumni list scuba as something that they do. So here we got Sam Rad, Evan Chartier, whatever it is, Charlie Balk, these people, they all went to Colgate, but they all have scuba in their background. So let's say I really enjoy scuba diving. I can now connect with, let's say, this guy, Evan, and because let's go to his thing. He's got a nice mountains in his background. I'm just going to scroll down here real quick to see. Oh, he was a sergeant. Interesting. In the Israeli. Oh, here you go. So he's a dive master, Technical Diving International. So I could, for argument's sake, if I wanted to connect with him, I could click on connect, and then in my invitation say, hey, Evan, I see you're a fellow Colgate grad, but you're also really into scuba. Would love to talk about that. I'm huge. I dove last year in wherever it is, the Florida Keys, and it was amazing. Let's have a conversation. Would love to connect with you. That's the way to send an invitation. Find one or two things that you share in common with the person you'd like to connect with. So the same thing goes for any alums. Let's say you're at Medgar Evers, you're at wherever you are, and you find other alums, and then you just start picking off who you want to connect with. It's that easy. I promise you it's that easy. And the thing is, you can send out, for argument's sake, you could send out 100 invitations in an afternoon. Easy. Just copy and paste. Say, hello, Evan. As a fellow Medgar Evers student and alum, or I'm a current Medgar Evers student, I see you're an alum. Would love to connect with you. I see you're also really interested in basketball. Let's have a conversation in the coming days. Regards, Sue, Jim, Nancy, whatever. That's the way to start reaching out, connecting with people. I think what you're going to find is that probably 80 to 90% of them will accept the invite as long as you personalize it. Make sure you identify why you're reaching out to them. In this case here, you're reaching out because they happen to be a fellow student, but they also, or alum, and they also happen to be really interested in that shared interest that you have. I know I'm talking through this super fast, but I do want to try to convince you all that it is really, really easy to connect with some really impressive and influential people. I promise you that is the basis of almost all my work. It's come from LinkedIn connections. And I'm going to give you a quick little story about this and why this happened. And it actually all happened because of LinkedIn. And I'm going to go backwards from it. My business right now, a lot of what I do is I work with athletes and I help them transition from their sport to what they do next, right? And I have some clients that I can charge a fair amount of money for that opportunity and that coaching. That happened because I became a subject matter expert in that area. That happened because I wrote this book. I wrote the book because I was motivated by a retired athlete to do that. And I worked with this one particular athlete who was, he had been an NHL hockey player, and he'd been retired for 10 years. He played for a long time, 13 years career. He'd been retired for 10 years. The previous 7, he'd been at home day trading. And his wife and his kids were kind of like, hey, get out of here, go get a job, go do something, right? And he spoke to me and he said, Mark, I'm just a dumb jock. I don't have anything. I don't have any skills. I don't have anything. So we spoke a little bit about all the things that he brought to the table as an athlete that a company and a business would love to have. He also happened to like trading. He was doing day trading at home. So that was a skill that he enjoyed. And within 5 weeks of reaching out and connecting with people and starting to have conversations with people that led to interviews and an offer, he ended up within 5 weeks going from being miserable on his couch to working on a trading desk at a financial services firm. And he said to me, Mark, you need to work with athletes. We need your help more than anything else. We get kicked to the curb when we leave our sport and nobody's there to support us. And that's what inspired me to write the book. I would have never met him if it wasn't for a guy that I met from a LinkedIn group. I joined a LinkedIn group 6-7 years ago called Hockey Players Doing Business Together, because I play hockey right now. I play ice hockey. And this guy saw one of my posts where I was talking about interview skills. And he reached out to me and said, Mark, hey, I'd love to connect with you and see if you can add some content to my website. And we started doing that. And then after that, he said, Mark, there's this former hockey player that I think could really use your help. I started having a chat with him, and then the rest is history. So all of this started, my whole career, the last several years, happened because I joined a group on LinkedIn called Hockey Players Doing Business Together. That's it. I'm telling you, I promise all of you that if you become active on LinkedIn and you start connecting and taking the initiative and being proactive, not reactive, being proactive and reaching out to these folks, you will absolutely start crushing it. Look, I can go on and on and on, but before I do, please, if you have any questions, anything at all about LinkedIn, about networking, about what to say to people, how to ask them for it, throw it in that Q&A section for me. That'd be great. Now, I also want you to think about, like, if you ever attend any sort of university events, or you are wondering what to say to people that are, let's say, my age and stuff, like, what, you might be thinking, well, what on earth do I bring to the table? I'm just a college kid kind of thing, right? Well, actually, you bring a whole lot to the table. Number one is that you all of you have networks, you have circles, you have people in your circle and outside your circle that are important, that are valuable to other people. And you may say, wait a minute, no, I don't know about that. My brother, my sister, my this, my that, my friends, my whatever. They're just, no, that's not true. Everybody has expertise. Everybody has something they can share with somebody else. I promise you, if you play basketball and you know how to play basketball, you know how to, what's the best way to dribble up for a layup, or what are some of the techniques you use to shoot free throws? Well, I don't know crap about basketball. I don't. I mean, I was never good at it. I could play a little bit, but I was never great at it. So you are my expert now. I can ask you a question on, is it smart to visualize the rim, the backboard? Do you look at the fans behind? What do you do? Now you're my expert. You are valuable to me. I promise you, whatever it is you do, whatever your background is, you are an expert in that background. And you should absolutely run with that. Please run with that. Okay. So I know I'm throwing a lot at you here, but I just want to make sure that you all understand, all of you, that going for a job when you graduate school, just applying for jobs, that's not the way to do it. I make all my clients swear to me that as long as I'm working with them, I basically forbid them from sending a resume to somebody, and I forbid them from applying online. And people are shocked. They say, well, how am I supposed to find a job? I say, well, look, the vast majority of people don't find jobs from applying online. They don't find jobs from sending their resume out to 100, 500 people and hope that something happens. It doesn't work that way. Instead, what you need to do is to basically network your way into job, network your way into company, start meeting people, start having conversations with them. That's how you get a job. When you see a job posted online and you say, oh my gosh, I'd be perfect for that. Wrong. Here's the problem. Almost all the jobs that are posted have already been filled. They've already identified someone that they like, but they want to make sure that they can tell HR, they can tell others that they have received a diverse slate of candidates that come in. So they may have already, decided, gee, we really want to hire Susan or Joe or whoever it is, but we need to interview other people. The problem with that is that all the other people think, oh, I got a shot at this job. Well, you don't, or you almost don't. So it's a numbers game, and it's really challenging to get a job that's posted online. But then you'll say, well, gee, I'm perfect for this job. And then when you don't get a shot, when you don't even get a call, you don't get anything, you're devastated. You're wondering, wait a second, why aren't they talking to me? I'm perfect for this job. What's up with that? Well, that's what's up with that, is that they've already filled it, or they've already identified somebody. So instead, my biggest advice to you about this process and figuring out, well, what is it that you want to do after you leave school? Number one, the best way to identify what you'd be good at is by looking at your accomplishments and really thinking, well, if I look at those accomplishments, I can start seeing that I'd be really good in leadership, in management, in design, in, again, architecture, and looking at, the different things that really make you who you are. That's what's going to make you succeed going forward, I promise. From there, it's then really starting to put yourself out there and start reaching out to people and making connections. And to me, the best way to do that is by having an incredibly robust LinkedIn profile. And it doesn't matter if you're a freshman in college or my age or whatever it is. There's always the ability to make a robust profile that other people will take a look at, and then start connecting with people, reaching out to them and making those connections. It's so essential. So before I go any further, this is going to be the second chance to jump back to the tables. And what I want you to do is just kind of maybe you've already been doing this, but take a couple minutes to look at your profile. And if you feel that you've got a pretty good LinkedIn profile, I'd love to hear from you, and I'll bring yours up if you don't mind, and then I'll send you a book as well. So we're going to go back to tables for 2 seconds, and then I'll start bringing in some a couple of you to share your LinkedIn profile with me. All right, thanks. Here we go. All right, folks. I was just in the table with Carl and with Kim and so on, and Carl brought up a very good point, and it's absolutely true. I can't tell you how often. I'm sure you've heard lots of older people say time flies, and it really does. And there have been lots and lots of people that I've connected with that I've kind of lost track of, but like somehow 5 years later they pop back in, and it's just like it was yesterday. And I have close to 6,000 or 7,000 connections on LinkedIn, but I can safely say that I know pretty well a lot of them, and I can really reconnect with them, and it's almost like we didn't even miss a beat, and we're off and running again. So I do encourage all of you, I really just strongly urge all of you to start making those connections and start not just making them, but then running with them. So one of the things that's really important is this: when you reach out to connect with somebody and you send that invite, and they accept it, what happens is they get an email notification that says, John Smith wants to connect with you. Do you accept or not connect? But they read the message and say, oh, John Smith was also a football player. Yeah, I'll accept it. Yes. Well, then you get a notification that says, congrats, you're now connected to John Smith. Well, what do you do with that? Well, what you do with that is, I always tell people right away, immediately, go into LinkedIn, find out their email address, because when you connect with somebody on LinkedIn, you now have access to their email address, and I'll show you where that pops up. Let me just go back to here. I'll show you. Dahlia's here, so we'll go to Dahlia's profile, and right here, contact info. You'll see it's right there. I click on that, and here is her email right there. So that's the easy way to find people, super easy. Then what you want to do is from there, you want to, so whenever, this is Dahlia's screen, she's here, but if you go into contact info, now that I'm connected with her, I'm a first degree connection, click on contact info, and here's her email right there. So it's really easy to find people's contact info. Then now I can send an email to her, and what I'm going to say in that email is, I'll stop sharing that for a sec. What I'm going to say in that email is, hello, Dahlia. As I mentioned in my invite, I'm also a volleyball player at Colgate or whatever it was. And I'd like to, further that by having a conversation with you next couple of days. So send an email right away that suggests that you want to have a conversation with them. But don't just say, hey, let's talk next week. What you need to say is, you need to give them 2 options and say, I'd love to have a conversation with you either next Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday morning. Which one is best for you? And the reason you do that, it's called the alternate sales close, a little trick that I try to use as often as possible. Instead of saying, let's talk next week when works for you, that's putting a burden on them. It's kind of like, when you're going out for dinner and you say to someone, hey, let's go out and get some food. Where do you want to go? I don't know. There's like 10 million restaurants to choose from. So instead, if you say, hey, let's go out for dinner. Let's, you want, do you want sushi, or do you want, or you want chicken or something, fried chicken or whatever it is, or do you want, burgers? Give 2 choices. People will be thrilled with you. They're like, oh, good. Do you want Italian or do you want Mexican? Oh, yeah, Mexican sounds great. It's easy on the brain too, right? So it's the same thing here. When you reach out to people, And you respond back to them once they've accepted your invitation to connect, and you say, I'd love to have a phone conversation with you in the coming days. What's better for you, Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday morning? You're giving them two choices. Now, they may say, oh, geez, I got meetings all Tuesday afternoon, but Wednesday morning at 9 works. Great. Or they may say, you know what, neither works for me. But then they'll say, but how about Thursday afternoon? The point being is that when you give people two choices, they will choose one, even if it's not the best choice for them. Okay, but you want to nail down people to have a conversation. The next question you're going to have is, well, what do you say in that conversation? Because you say, well, I don't know, now that I know that I'm connected to Jane Smith or Bob Jones or whoever it is, well, now what am I going to say to them? Well, you're going to simply ask them questions. You want to find out from them, hey, I see that you're working over at JP Morgan Chase, or you're working at Procter and Gamble, or you're working at so-and-so hospital, or you're working wherever it is. I'd love to hear you tell me a little bit about your experience with that. Tell me a little bit about how you got involved there. People love to share that stuff with you. They love to tell their story. So ask them their story. Ask them questions. Ask, ask, ask. I'm telling you, when you ask questions and you get those answers, they are going to be impressed with you because you're allowing them to talk about themselves. And we all love to talk about ourselves a lot, I promise you. One of the examples I like to give people is if you walk into a restaurant or you're at a barbecue or wherever you are, you'll rarely hear someone say, hey, Jim, good to see you. What do you think about the Yankees? No, they're going to say, yo, Jim, Yankees suck. And you'll be like, whoa, 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 big guy. They're just in a little bit of they're in a tough stretch right now. They don't suck. They're really good. But it's uncommon for someone to ask someone else their opinion. It's very unusual. Usually you'll give your own opinion. So here, when you're speaking to people that you're starting to have this conversation with, and you start asking them for their opinion about something, they're going to love you. They're going to put you at the top of the pile. They're going to say, this is the kind of person I'd love to hire here. And before you know it, as you start developing that conversation and you start having that, you start talking to people, you're going to find that they're going to say, you know what, Jim, would you ever consider working with us? We're really impressed. I'm really impressed with you. Instead of you saying, hey, can I send you my resume? I see that you have lots of jobs posted on your website. Wrong. Don't do that, please. When I show people how easy a lot of this stuff is to do, and they start doing it, they're kind of like, wait a minute, how come no one ever taught me this, right? Like when I was at my school at Colgate, I mean, no offense to any of your career centers, I'm sure they're all fantastic. So I got, but our career centers sucked. It was horrible. We didn't know, they didn't teach us a thing about how to find a job. They'd say, well, here's how you have standard answers to some of the standard interview questions. Like, whoop-de-doo. Like, but I never knew how to find a job. I never even knew how to identify what I'd be good at or what I'd want to do. I just kind of figured, I guess I'll just go do that. I don't know. What else is there? So all of you have such a great advantage because you've got the internet. You've got everything you can explore, right? But if you're armed with the idea that as an athlete, you have tremendous skills and capabilities and traits that you bring to the table that non-athletes don't have. And you've got the grit, the tenacity, the work ethic, the ability. I mean, look, it's not easy to wake up every morning, drag your ass out of bed and go to practice. I mean, there's a reason why non-athletes are non-athletes. They don't want to deal with that crap. And you do. That's amazing. But on top of that, you can leverage all that into really some fantastic next careers, right? Because you can say, look, you know what? Looking back, and even look back on your athletic career and say, look, you know what? It's pretty damn good that I woke up every morning for like a year and swam like a mile every morning. That's pretty friggin' amazing. I mean, that's insane, but you did it. And that's incredible. And it's really important. And it doesn't matter if you won a medal or not. It doesn't matter if you scored a game-winning touchdown or a game-winning field goal or any of that stuff. It doesn't matter. The fact remains that every single one of you as an athlete have done so much that non-athletes can't even possibly appreciate. But when they become hiring managers and when athletes become hiring managers, they truly understand and appreciate everything you bring to the table. So with all that said, I just want to tie some of these loose ends together real quick. Number one, please make sure to try to work on doing that career sort of strengths tracker assessment thing where you make a list of your accomplishments and pull from those accomplishments some of the common threads that you believe, really highlight what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, your accomplishments and what the common threads were in those. Write those down, write that stuff down. Then start thinking, all right, make a target list, make a list of maybe companies you'd love to work for or jobs you'd like to be in. You know, one thing I didn't cover yet, but it's that target list. And it's something that's really amazing when you do this sort of thing. You know, lots of people say, well, you know, I don't see these companies hiring right now and it's not a good market. Who the hell cares? You only need one job. You don't need 100 jobs, right? So to me, if you make a list of all the companies you think would be really cool to work for, if it's Google, Nike, whatever, Athletic, or Macy's or Exxon or whatever the companies are, make a list of those. And then think to yourself, well, in there, what are some of the jobs I'd like to do in those companies? Well, I'd love to be a designer. I'd love to be an analyst. I'd love to be whatever it is. Well, if you make a list of 40 companies and you have a list of 5 jobs at least that you do in those 40 companies, you now have a list of 200 jobs, 200 jobs that you would love to be in, right? You call the shots. You need to be proactive and you go after those 200 jobs. Now, you're not going to apply to 200 jobs, but what I want you to do is take a look at those companies, look at some of those jobs, and then start connecting with people at those companies on LinkedIn. Start reaching out to them and just saying, hey, Jim, I see that you're over at Nike and you're doing product design, you know, and you're also a John Jay grad. Would love to talk to you. Would love to have a conversation, hear more about what you do. You're not saying I want to apply for your, you know, to work at Nike. You're saying I want to hear more about what you do. He or she or whoever it is will answer back. Would love to have that conversation. Great. What's better for you, Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday morning? Boom, and you're off and running. And then in conversation, just ask questions. Look, I can go on and on and on for a while, but I think my time is just about wrapping up here. But listen, I insist and encourage all of you to feel free to reach out to me, send me an invitation to connect. I'm happy to share more of my info. Also, we'll send out a few books to the people that jumped in here. Thanks again to all of you for being here. And you guys are all a fantastic crowd here. Thanks so much.
First time on this platform, but certainly appreciate your time today. Obviously, a lot of information. It's great to see such a good turnout. Hopefully, you know, they're able to take full advantage of some of the information that you've shared. I certainly can attest, as I shared previously, as a former student athlete, you know, my journey that brought me to this point today certainly was convoluted. And every step of the way, there's people that helped me on that journey. There's people that I've reached out, including my former coach that I'm in contact with to this very day. And actually is probably the person that brought me back into collegiate athletics. So take full advantage of the resources around you. Just this past weekend, I bumped into one of my former student athletes unexpectedly, and it was great to be able to catch up with her and provide some resources. As I say, anybody you've met on that journey is only too happy to help, I'm sure. It's just really making that connection and then using those resources that you shared. So thank you very much. I really look forward to this upcoming season. And again, you know, to all the student athletes out there, please, you know, don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to hear back from you and get more insight into what you feel would be helpful and impactful in terms of programming, in terms of resources, so we can support yourself and your campus moving forward. Thank you very much, and have a great week.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We're going to go back to the tables, and if everybody would like to still hang out for a little bit, we can continue on and chat some more. So here we go.